Food fans, we're back. It's Saturday still and we're still baking. So next up is all-American apple pie. Got the banana nut bread cooking away, baking away rather. So let's start our second one, which is our apple pie. First up, the ingredients. Unlike most recipes on the internet, I tend to do 3 apple pies at once. They're not huge apple pies. They're average size. They cook better, in my opinion, that way. When you go with average size, you try to pile a bunch of apples. Some recipes will call for 8 apples cut up. Some will call for 6 apples cut up. I think that's way too many. I've done it myself, and it's too much. It's better to have a couple apples per smaller pie. It comes out better, it bakes better, blah blah blah. So anyway, 2 apples. What's it cost there? Not much, 30 cents, something like that. Our cinnamon, using probably 5 cents worth of this. Our golden brown sugar. This is one of my favorites. You just saw me use it in the other video. When I'm torn between using white sugar, basic white sugar, and dark brown, I usually go right in the middle on a lot of things with the golden brown sugar. I think it's great. So that's $1. We're using probably not very much of it. We're using probably 20 cents worth of it. Nah, 10 cents worth of it. Maybe. Half a stick of butter. Maybe a little bit more, but something like that. It's 50 cents, give or take. And usually don't do optional stuff, but this one is optional. A little bit of pure vanilla, maybe. You do it, you don't do it. If you do it, you're going to just add a little dab of it. It's almost nothing, almost not worth mentioning, so that's why it doesn't really matter if you do it or not. I do it just because, but either way. And a little bit of flour, 5 cents worth, 10 cents worth. Our pie crust, your options here. You can either go out and to a place like, say, Fresh and Easy and get their 2 pie crusts in one package. They're frozen, which is $3. So basically $1.50 per crust. Nice thing there is it's already made, already formed. It's already in its disposable own pie pan, which you could probably do at first. It's easy to do it that way. Just go and buy it. It's already ready to go. When you get a little bit smoother with all this, you can start picking these up for $1 a piece when they go on sale at the 99-cent store. These actually have 2 pie crusts in one, so instead of paying $3 for 2, you're paying $1 for 2. The difference is you have to form your own. You have to roll it out and form your own pie crust, which takes minimal effort. So try them both. At first go with the easier one maybe, but later on go with this guy. Put them in the freezer at first to keep them, have them keep well. But when you're ready to use them, like the next day or 2, bring them out, put them in the refrigerator, and let them kind of thaw out a little bit. So that way you can do this with it. If you use them right away, great. Just put them in the fridge and just use them where you're going to use them. Now all I've done here is I used one of these 2 the other day on another apple pie. I'm using the other one right now on this one. All I've done is open up the package and unrolled it for the most part. Key part here, I took a little bit of flour, so little, as you can see it right here, just barely floating around. And all I use is my hand to kind of just coat it, barely. And that will keep your pie from sticking to the pan. Next, I normally would have unrolled this right in there. This might kind of actually get screwed up a little bit. Is just unroll it right in the pan. And it never comes out perfect, especially when you don't roll it right in the pan like I didn't just now. But, so when you do it, roll it directly into the pan. Don't try to make a video and prep it ahead of time because it'll fall apart like this. But, you get the point. Once it's in there, even if you do it correctly, it's going to kind of always get messed up a little bit at least. You have to kind of work with it. Make sure it's covered all over the bottom, even if it means you smashing stuff or moving the dough around. Even if you have to take some where there's some excess, like right over here, and move it, let's say where it's hurting for some, need for some right there. The outside is a good place to do it because we don't want too much excess anyway out here because the oven is going to bake that too quickly. Because we're going to probably put it in the oven for about 45 minutes. While we're on that topic, while we're just talking, and I'm doing this, recipes out there will call between putting it in the oven for 30 minutes to an hour. As always in Dollar Chef, usually the answer for us is somewhere in the middle of stuff you find on the internet. The happy middle, happy medium, or median. Once you distribute the dough and get all the excess in that you could see and redistribute it where you think it should be, and you form some kind of decent crust. As you can see, nothing is really completely hanging out too far on the edge. That stuff will get burnt if it's too far out there. You can't sit in the oven that long without getting torched a little bit. So bring it in some, redistribute it some, do whatever makes common sense. Get it also somewhat flat so your stuff lays in here well. That is kind of how you want it to look. Remember the flour, a little bit of flour is below that, so it's not going to stick too much when it's all done. What do I do next? Actually, what I would have done is I would have put this in the oven while it's preheating. So as it was warming up, I would have done this first. As it was preheating, I would have thrown it in while it was still preheating, and this would have warmed up a little bit. Why do I do this? Because I want this to bake the crust by itself for a second. You don't have to do this, by the way. This will work out perfectly fine either way, but I like this browned a little bit on the surface as well, where it can't get too easily once you put the ingredients in. So again, do you have to do this part? No, but I like doing it because it's just a little bit better. So while it's preheating or while you're getting your other ingredients together, the main point is to get this going first. Throw it in the oven. Now as you're doing the other stuff for about 5 or 10 minutes, 5, 8 minutes, something like that. Not too long though, not more than 10 minutes probably. It's basically browning it a little bit. And obviously we're going to further cook it when we cook everything together. Okay, so let's move along. And get this going so we actually time it right. 2 apples. What type? Best ones I've found are Red Delicious apples. They have the right sweetness, right everything about it. I prefer these over every other one. How many? Like I said, 2 of them. How did we cut them up? 4 slices. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like me. After getting done cutting up, take a small little break. Have a little lunch. All right, enough screwing off here. Let's cut these bad boys up. Unlike other directions, I found that cutting them up pretty small is way better. Why? Because they bake better that way. Like anything you bake or cook, the smaller pieces, the faster they bake, and the more surface area that is baking when it is baking. So by going small, you give access to more surface area. So pretty small, small like that, or maybe even a little bit smaller. But this is good. Throw it in your bowl. You notice what I'm doing with all this stuff. Is that small? Yeah, that's small enough. Could I go smaller? Sure. Any smaller than that? Bad idea. This has probably been pushing it, but I wanted to show you at least one time. Okay, so here's a regular one. Slice it. Dice it. This is not taking too long. Pie crust is baking away all by itself, getting a little brown, and we are pretty efficient with our time. Should have more time enjoying eating these things that we make, and less time making it. Number 2. You guys don't get any. You got to make your own. Okay. As a side note, I'm making 2 things at once. You guys probably figured out. The previous video was the banana nut bread. I like doing that. I like making 2 things at once. That way you're wasting less time. You're doing multiple things at once in the kitchen. You're also turning the oven on for multiple reasons all at once. Got to turn on anyway. You're wasting the gas anyway. Might as well be efficient with that too. Always start whichever project's going to take longer to bake, which in this case it was the banana nut bread, so I started that first. The apple pie doesn't take quite as long. So these will roughly be done about the same time. Therefore, the oven goes off about the same time. Don't waste natural gas, we don't have to. Yes, I do care about the environment. Yes, I do care about climate change. Is it going to fix the world what I'm doing? Nope. It might help out a little bit. So, that's 2 apples, and that's what 2 apples looks like. As you can see, that bowl's pretty full of apples, and that's why I think it's pretty crazy when they call for 6 to 8 apples cut up. Besides the fact that I've done it, and there's just too many apples in there. It's kind of stupid. So 6 apples, sure, if you're making 3 pies out of it, which again, I usually do make 3 pies because it's easy. You know, 1, 2, 3, then apples, 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 and you get all done at the same time. But today we're just demonstrating 1 pie because I want to show you guys what's going on. All right, next up is making this glorious sauce for the apple pie that we're going to drizzle all over the apples before it goes in. So again, we got a few minutes left before you need to pull the pie out, and let's do this. We're going to bring over our stuff, our butter, cinnamon, and sugar, and vanilla, and flour. Now, what we're going to do is add, if you got to measure it, it's going to be a quarter. It's going to be a quarter cup of the of water, distilled or reverse osmosis or filtered if you have it here, something other than chlorinated hopefully. But if you don't have it, then tap water is fine. So about a quarter cup. Eyeball it if you can. The water. About that much. In a very small pot. Maybe a bit more. Put it on high. Right around now, check how our pie crust is doing. It's halfway there, so I'm still okay on it, on timing. I can let it go a little longer. Get our pot heated up. The sugar, anywhere for a half a cup to a full cup. Again, you're going to see these variations on the internet. And again, we're going to go right in the middle with 3/4 cups. So, and again, my favorite, golden brown. So the water's getting heated up. We're going to do a half a stick of butter. On this one, you can go more if you want on this particular item. It actually might even be a bad idea. Maybe go 3/4. If you really, really like butter, go the whole thing. But we're gonna try to keep it kind of chill right now and go with just the minimum half stick of butter. And remember the sugar I'm doing right now, it's about in the ballpark of 3/4 cups. I'm going to probably go somewhere between a half a cup and 3/4 cup. And again, obviously I eyeballed it. If you want to use your measuring cup, go ahead. Next up, some cinnamon. How much cinnamon? I don't know. A little bit of cinnamon. Tablespoon or so, maybe a little bit more if you like it. And this is one of those things you do have to pay attention to as you're doing it. This moves pretty fast. It's a small pot. It's a high heat. The stuff will stick to the side of the pot. It'll burn. Basically caramelize too fast and we're going to burn water out of this somewhat. And turn this down for a second because now that we've got everything melted and mixed together pretty well, first part. slow it down for a second. The heat. We're doing the optional part next. So again, you can skip this part. A little bit of vanilla. I'm talking the second you see it come out, stop. It was nothing. You probably even missed what happens now. So, most likely at first, I probably skip that step. You want to mess around later, like I like doing now. Add it, but don't add more than like a drip or so. And once you're here, you have a sugary cinnamon water mess. You're like, well, that looks like it tastes good, but you're just going to dump that on the apple pie? It doesn't make much sense. No, we're not. We're going to add somewhere between 2 to 3 tablespoons of flour. And again, you're going to see me eyeball it. What this is going to do is going to suck up that excess water. Let's see, the way I eyeball it is I just kind of use a knife and bring the flour out. So I'm almost at probably a tablespoon right there. I'm going to go to there, maybe 2.5. Okay. So this is why I teach you guys this way, is because all the measuring in the world doesn't compensate for just being able to look at the food and go, well, looks a little dry or looks a little wet, and knowing how to adapt and what to use and whatever. So we're going to put this back on high, burn more of the water off, some water vapors going. Notice I'm smashing all the flour chunks against the edge of the pot with my metal spoon. And it looks like that little extra water I put in when I was messing around earlier. Back to low for a second. And I'm going to compensate for what I did earlier by adding that other tablespoon of flour. Okay. Back up, and we're back up to high. Smash the flour in. If it starts burning too fast, lower it like I just did. And just make sure you get all those little white chunks. Try to smash them as best you can against the edge of the pot. Also, by the way, you're here by the oven. A lot of the recipes call for baking it between 350 and 425. We're going to go on the slower side at 350 for 2 reasons. One, the banana bread's already at that level, and 2, it comes out better if you bake it slow, just like slow cooking a lot of things, like slow cooking meat and stuff like that. So slow baking also makes for more tender apple. So if you got the time, which we do today, go 45 minutes, give or take, at 350-ish versus 30 minutes at 425. But again, you guys can mess around with your own stuff too. Try different temperatures, try different times, you'll get it. Point is always get in the kitchen and just do it. Try it out, try stuff out. Hopefully I get you started doing that. Alright, so we're going to crank this real quick. It's already pretty much there. As you can see how it's moving along right there. It's getting more syrupy. And we're getting very close. If you're a little bit on the watery side, it's perfectly fine. Actually, I'm going to leave it a little bit on the watery side on purpose this time. I'm going to show you that it really doesn't matter. You could go more if you wanted to, a little more syrupy, but we're good. I like doing it kind of on the watery side right here because now I know I can let it sit here on this hot stove, even though it's off. It's just sitting there, and a little bit more will come off as we're doing this. So that's good. Let's get this. Pie out of here. Now, as you can see, pie crust, as I've been yapping away and showing you guys how to do this, has been browned. Now it's going to taste good inside and out. Bring our pot over here. And because we did the cinnamon right in the sauce, you don't have to add any more cinnamon. You can if you want to. I kind of advise against it because a lot of times you'll mess up and dump a little bit too much on there and get all distributed weird. So the cool thing about doing the cinnamon in the sauce is you have it properly distributed throughout the entire sauce. So I like it that way. What do you hear? You just finish this guy up. You literally just dump. Try to make sure your apple pieces are separated, but you literally just dump your apples if you notice, I'm done here. For a pie, a normal 9-inch pan, I do not know what they're talking about when they're saying use 6 or 8 apples. I just don't get that. You must be using incredibly small apples, because if this is 2 apples, I don't know about you guys, but I think this pie is pretty full of apples. Go make 2 more pies instead, this size. Come out better. Then you take your sauce and you basically just have fun drizzling it on. Notice the consistency and why I stopped when I did, because that way when I hit over here, it's been sitting there for a little bit, it comes out ever so slightly runny, but definitely like syrup. I don't know about you guys, I think this looks pretty good already. Unfortunately, we gotta wait 45 minutes to eat it. I even like going around the very edge with the crust. Do whatever you like, have some fun with it. Just like on pizzas when they do the little stuffed crust pizza stuff. Just make sure whatever you do, it's even. And that is our masterpiece. Last step, take our masterpiece, put it in our oven, which is at 350 degrees. Why? Because we're doing it slow. How long are we doing it for? 45 minutes. And when I see you again, I'll see you again next time.
Walking down the street and you hear that heavy beat, can't help but walk your feet down all the way till you meet people laughing and dancing all night long, and through the flashing lights see the band play their old song, and you wanna see the world through different eyes just for tonight, and you're hoping that this night will never end. You just surrender if you feel the music fold around you and pull you into the light flow, and takes away all strain and stress and turns it into light just for tonight.
All American food fans, we're back. Let's see our result. Something I forgot to tell you, which I will tell you right now. First of all, that's a result. Looks pretty good to me. That was 35 minutes of baking. What I forgot to mention was on that 45-minute number I gave you, you want to at least check. You basically, you take the amount of time that you allowed the crust, the dough, to pre-bake by itself, and you take that against the overall time of the 45 minutes. So if it spent 10 minutes in there pre-baking, which it did, then obviously deduct 10 minutes from the overall 45 minutes. So therefore, you're checking it 35 minutes into it when you start actually baking it. So that was 35 minutes of baking. The point there is to just, at the very least, check it at 35 minutes if you want to keep going. If you like it a little bit more brown, then go for it. But what you saw a second ago is where I personally like it. So that is it for baking today. That is it for Dollar Chef today. Next up is going to be it's dinner time. So next up is going to be the stuffed bell peppers. So stay tuned for that one as well. And I'll see you guys next time.